Welcome back. This is Exopolitics TV, and once again, we're very privileged to have Kevin Annett, who is the Field Secretary of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, and who has now been in various countries in Europe in conjunction with the trial and other matters of the International Common Law Court of Justice. Welcome, Kevin, and also welcome Joshua Lemons of Radio Warrior. And so I will turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Alfred.
How's it going, and where are you now in your travels all over Europe, Kevin?
Well, I've actually come back over the water. I'm in the United States right now, working with some groups in Florida, the common law education groups here. But I was in 5 countries in Europe over the last 3 weeks and had some quite amazing experiences.
Wow. So tell me, I heard there was you had an interview. A lot of people have emailed me concerning the, what was his name, Laurent Louis?
That's right. He's the Belgian member of Parliament, Laurent Louis. He's been in the headlines a lot.
Yeah, I know. What did you? How did your interview pan out, and what came up with that?
Well, we met with one of our ICTCCS groups in Belgium. Had a meeting between myself and him and all of his people. And they, of course, are preparing for an election on May 25th, but he was very embroiled in that. But the amazing thing about what he's done, if people don't know, is that he went public and was in the media all over Europe, accusing members of the government of being involved in child trafficking. He also named members of the Dutch royal family and the British royal family in this child trafficking. As a result, he's facing charges. They're attempting to bring him to trial. And he was also being assaulted by police and put in jail illegally. So, I mean, he's clearly being targeted for speaking out, and he's also very interested in the work we're doing. And he's, as part of our meeting, we agreed that we would continue to work very closely together. The only difficulty was the translation problem, because he, of course, didn't speak English, but we fortunately have translators who are able to, get around that. But I think the important thing is that we're now beginning to see politicians, in the mainstream coming forward to support what we've been doing for years, which is to say, yes, child trafficking and murder is happening at the highest levels of government and churches, all over Europe and America.
Nice. I hear that recently there was a soldier, Vivian Cunningham, an ex-military man from Jamaica that ended up being in the military in the UK, and he was detained and brought into jail for asking questions about the Common Law Court of Justice judgment?
Well, it's quite bizarre. And this is again happening, this is like a repeat of what happened to one of our members in Coventry, England, David Compan. If people remember, all David was doing was posting up notices describing how Elizabeth Windsor, so-called Queen Elizabeth of England, had been indicted before the Common Law Court case that the verdict came down February 2013, finding her and Pope Benedict and others guilty of not only committing crimes, but covering them up, crimes against children, and her particular role in abducting 10 native children from the Kamloops Indian School, and then these children were never seen again. All of that was described in the evidence that David was posting. They grabbed him, put him in a mental hospital under this notorious law in England, which basically criminalizes dissent. It says if you accuse people in high office of these crimes, you can be categorized as having a mental disorder, and it's called the Fixated Threat Assessment Law. And they put David into the mental hospital on that basis. They've done the same thing to Vivian Cunningham.
Now David, was Vivian up on the issues that were going on? Was he a part of ITCCS or any of the groups, or he was just asking questions?
Well, here's the story. With David, he was an activist within ITCCS.
Yeah.
But Vivian Cunningham was a soldier. He's a black Jamaican who had been a member of the British Army for a number of years. He enlisted in the Irish Guards, which is a fairly elite regiment, in Stafford, which is kind of in the center of England. A few weeks ago, on the internet, he saw our work, and he saw the arrest warrant issued by the Common Law Court in Brussels against Elizabeth Windsor. He brought it to the attention of his commanding officer. Mm-hmm. And the commanding officer, who's interesting, in response said that he didn't dispute the evidence. He didn't dispute what he was saying, but he asked Vivian to accompany him to a hospital for a test to make sure that Vivian was, okay. And, chain of command, I guess he felt he had to obey his officer. Yeah. He went along and he got put away. Now he's still in prison there, basically in prison in this mental hospital, St. George's Hospital in Stafford. They've committed him and will not let anyone call him. They've given him a whole series of antipsychotic drugs. And they're criminalizing him because he didn't even advocate anything. He just simply reported it to this captain in the Irish Guards, and he was incarcerated on that basis.
Wow. And have there been any calls coming to them? Are there ITCCS and ICLCJ members and people around the world calling in to get him out? What's been active in that end?
There's been a lot of calls coming in. That's one of the reasons they cut off any phoning privileges for Vivian, because he's been in there 3 days, and they've been getting so many calls from people all over England and around the world that they've simply cut off those calls now. Apparently, when you call the front desk of St. George's, they are very irate. They get people to brush off pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. They know they're under observation now, so that gives him some protection. We know that when prisoners of conscience, and he has been named a prisoner of conscience by the ITCCS. Okay. And people should also know that this Captain Morell, who committed him, has also been getting phone calls. We encourage people to go to the itccs.org website. The latest story, all the details about this case is the latest story up online, dated May 7th.
Yeah, we have the same article on ICLCJ. .com, as well as on we have a fairly lengthy article on radiowarrior.ca, and on Exopolitics, the blog.com has also a breaking news story concerning Vivian Cunningham. It's important for us to be able to support men and women who are out there. They may not even know what's going on, but it's our job as citizens and to support these people, because the idea of being incarcerated and drugged up, especially when you don't even know what's going on. Also, apparently his child was taken and returned back to Jamaica. Can you confirm that?
That's a rumor we heard. Now, the family in Jamaica has been in touch with us, with the Coventry ITCCS and with myself, and we are trying to set up a direct link with Vivian through his family, who are going to really demand access to him. But no, the fact that they're doing that, and this is not against somebody who was challenging the government, was even going along. He was simply reporting what he found. And on that basis, they lock him away as if to shut up the whole issue. Yeah. So, I mean, this is really horrendous.
Yeah, I know that also a notice was sent out to the Jamaican regiment that he was a part of to get support from his former regiment to send letters of getting him out as well. Right. So I hear. Wow. So, tell me what happened in your trip in Spain and France. What kind of activity did you have there that helped support the Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels and your own for information for ITCCS?
Well, as part of the, just to back up a little bit, okay. The case that's going on in Brussels involving global child trafficking has been accumulating amazing testimonies. There have been 8 people who have given their testimony so far in the Common Law Court there. This is involving child trafficking with the present Pope Jorge Bergoglio, Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the head of the Jesuits, Adolfo Pachon. Now, in Holland and in Belgium, we spoke to 2 new witnesses who actually were present when both of these individuals were at the Ninth Circle cult rituals. Now, this Ninth Circle is a child sacrificial cult, and it involves top church officials, including popes. And as you know, following that lead, we were led again to the more eyewitnesses, several of whom were in Spain. And I went down to Barcelona and Madrid and met with these people. And one of them, of course, he was one of the first people to give testimony at when the Common Law Court convened on April 7th. And this is the man who was a former civil servant in the Argentine government who sat in on meetings where the present Pope actually planned how to traffic children of political prisoners, how to kidnap them and traffic them. Now, as part of that, we also met a man in Barcelona who was leading a whole movement there. His name's Antonio Barossa, and he was one of 300,000 children who were kidnapped by the Catholic Church between the 1940s and the 80s during the Franco dictatorship.
Wow. The
Catholic Church went in there and stole 300,000 children and trafficked them for between $40,000 and $80,000 each. So they made $20 billion just off that one operation in Spain. They told the parents the kids had died, and then they sold them off in the black market to the highest bidder, basically.
So we have have affidavits, written information, verification that these things actually took place.
Absolutely. We have eyewitnesses that they were children that this happened to. And again, with the connection with the present Pope is that he was sickly involved in the same program in Argentina, showing it's a global, system run by the Catholic Church to do exactly that, to traffic newborns, and for a lot of money. So, this is what we're beginning to pull the cover back on.
Okay. And actually, Alfred, did you have a few points to bring out or questions? Are you there, Alfred?
Yes. Sorry, I had my mute button on.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yes, Kevin, you had indicated that the Brussels trial had adjourned, but that it was going to resume, and that it might go on for possibly as long as a year. Could you give us an idea of when it is going to resume, and what sorts of evidences or what sorts of witnesses will be coming on, and what the general forecast is for the conduct of the trial?
Well, the original plan was there was a 2-week adjournment, and it was supposed to convene again on the 12th, next Monday. There's been another delay in that because, frankly, one of the big efforts with the court has been the training of enforcement officers. And there's a big effort now we now have over 90 volunteers around the world who want to do training to become common law peace officers and sheriffs. And so, the court doesn't have a lot of resources, and they can't do a lot of things at once. So they've had to take some of the energy they were putting into the court and put it towards this training program, and they've put off for another week the reconvening of the court. Another reason they did that, however, was because of these testimonies that have come forward have led into all sorts of other directions, and they've got their research teams working on following these leads to help the prosecution's case. So, I mean, it's the complexity of the case and, the limited resources of the criminal court means that it's taking longer than it would in a normal court if it had millions of dollars, right? But it's really a sign of how much there is that's coming out. And, I having met with some of these people, I just am really impressed by the dedication and the courage of these witnesses. I've got on tape more evidence from Toast Nienhaus about, the things she couldn't even mention the first time. You find with survivors of these crimes, they're not always able to mention everything right at first. No. But it's astounding stuff, and we're going to have it. The prosecution's agreed that they are going to, again, release this through an information bulletin, sharing some of this evidence, again, during May.
Yes, right. Just a couple of follow-up questions on that. Just so that people begin to understand, what are these enforcement officers going to be doing?
Well, there's really 5 jobs, and one of the reasons the court is training the people now is because there have been crime scene investigations that are needed to be mounted by the court. For example, some of the mass grave sites mentioned by Toast, there were also grave sites mentioned in Spain. And basically we need competent crime scene investigators to go in there and get more evidence for the prosecution. That's one of the main jobs in the training of these sheriffs and peace officers. They're in touch with forensic specialists. In fact, one of the groups that was active in Bosnia in unearthing mass graves have volunteered to help the court. So there's trained forensic specialists who are going to be going out to assess these sites, to do DNA analysis, on the remains and that kind of thing. But besides the crime scene investigation, the sheriffs are needed to enforce the warrants of the court. There's standing arrest warrants against Elizabeth Windsor, Joseph Ratzinger, and others, Stephen Harper, the Prime Minister of Canada. There's efforts by groups around the world to actually perform citizens' arrests, to occupy these churches, seize the property that was expropriated by the common law decision in the first court case. All of that is needed in order for the court to carry on. So it's really trying to deal with many fronts all at once, and we realize that the enforcement end is very essential, so that this tribunal isn't just a symbolic, statement, but it's actually a court with teeth that can go in and perform the arrests, find more evidence, and that kind of thing.
Right. Now, the other follow-up question is this, that we're asked by many people every day on social media and elsewhere who are following this trial on a day-to-day basis, where they can access this evidence. Some of them, say, wow, these allegations are so amazing. I mean, they have to go through so many paradigm shifts that they want to see it. Others want to follow up. Others want to be able to pass it on to their friends. Where can people really follow this so that they can be able to follow the evidence as it comes out, or is evidence going to be available? That is, how is the trial being reported to the public?
Well, the trial itself had to be held in camera because of security issues, threats to people in the court and to witnesses. And for example, the first case, the case of that civil servant from Argentina, he had to. He came to Brussels, gave the testimony. He's now back, held incommunicado somewhere, for his own safety. So, I mean, that's part of the reason that the court decided to issue these information bulletins. There have been 3 issued, and all people have to do is go back through postings of itccs.org, and you'll see references to these things. But the second case is really a continuation of the first, and the 150 exhibits that were used to prove the case of genocide in Canada by these very same institutions that are on trial now, all of that has been up online for months and at itccs.org, all of that evidence. So, I mean, the evidence is there, and also, on top of that, in the coming months, the prosecution is talking about ways of releasing the evidence in a way that's not going to compromise the case, because the most important thing is the proving of the case, first of all, bringing in a verdict, and then, like I say, the enforcement aspect. So all of that is, making it that this isn't like a normal, as open as we would have liked it. But I think your point about paradigm shift is really important, because we find in the past the problem isn't the evidence. The evidence is out there in the eyewitnesses and the documents, even in forensic evidence. What the problem is that people find it very hard to believe. And what I found is that when people have that problem that they simply can't believe these things are happening, or that these high institutions and popes and others are doing these crimes, they then revert to the psychological defense of, well, it can't be true, let's see evidence. It's kind of like trying to feed somebody with salt water. They're never satisfied because what they want isn't evidence. They want some affirmation that this can't be true. And that's not to discount everybody's statements, but I find that it's really a question of their worldview quite often, and not evidence per se.
I know that worldwide a lot of people are waking up because information like this is coming out. But is there, after evidence comes out, outside, you're mentioning that a lot of the stuff is done in camera because of safety concerns. Now, are these sessions being videotaped? The evidence that is given by this Argentinian, for instance, is it on video, and will it be put out on a court of record? On a website or a platform where people themselves can actually read or listen to or see the evidence as it's supposed to be a public affair? Are these things going to become available so people worldwide can say, yes, this is what's going on at the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels, and this is the evidence that's being presented, and we have access to this court of record, so others can possibly say, look, this happened to me, provide more evidence, or also let people within the Catholic Church and other groups become aware of what's actually happening and transpiring?
Well, what's happened is it's really two stages. The first stage is doing the court, and security is paramount for that. Now, I don't know the details of who exactly is being videoed and who isn't. I understand that the case of the civil servant from Argentina was so important that absolutely he's on video. But as we did with our first tribunal in Canada in 1998, some of those testimonies were in private, and it was never released to anybody because of the request of the witness and others for their own safety. I don't know the details. The prosecution knows that. But what I do know is the idea of doing it in two stages is this. You do the court case first, it's documented, and then there will be a public display of that once the verdict is in. In effect, stage two will be, okay, we're going to take all the evidence, we're going to present it in a public way, including in a documentary form. It was strongly recommended by me and others that we actually do a whole documentary film based on the court proceedings. And all of the evidence can then be laid out to the world. But we need the evidence done in a proper way first, presented in the proper way, and done according to due process and the whole bit by the court itself first. Now, they've had to do it in that two-step way because there was, and my understanding is that there was a team set out by the Holy Alliance, by the Jesuit spy agency, to take out members of the court, literally to kill them. And, the same way they did Pope John Paul I, about all of this stuff. So there's also information that I, myself, being targeted while in France. And so, we had to take measures to, in response to that. So all of that makes it frustrating for people, but at the same time, when you look at what we're up against, it's understandable they've decided to do it that way.
Now, Kevin, just picking up on what you said about the paradigm shift and what the what the defendants are doing to prevent this information from coming out, it occurred to me just now to revisit the case of Vivian Cunningham, soldier Vivian Cunningham, who is now been committed for 6 months to a mental hospital just for asking questions. And it seems to me that is a measure taken by the Crown, which is exactly to prevent a paradigm shift. That is that they don't want, and to prevent any. You had stated that the enforcement officers are now being trained to enforce warrants against Elizabeth Windsor. Well, presumably these UK soldiers have taken an oath of loyalty to Elizabeth Windsor and would defend against any attempts to serve the warrants against her. But if the soldiers now are questioning these crimes, well, then the oath of loyalty would be null. And so that's why they want to attempt to inoculate the entire British Army by incarcerating in mental facilities any of the armed forces that are sworn to protect her, precisely against any of the enforcement by court personnel to serve these warrants.
Yeah, well, they're setting an example of them. They're shooting them in plain sight to warn other British soldiers that if you even talk about this issue, you're going to end up in a mental hospital. It's like when they defrocked me, when the United Church did the only public delisting in their history of a minister. It was back in 97 when they got rid of me. It was a message to all the clergy: watch out, this will happen to you. So clearly that's why they're targeting Vivian Cunningham. They're making a public example of them. So in a way, the more we talk about this, that's what they're hoping, that a lot of people are going to get scared over this. And in that sense, I don't think they're going to release him like they did David Compan. I think they're going to definitely make an example of him. But in the broader picture, the reason we issued, and a couple of months ago, the court actually issued stand-down orders to all of the legal agents of the Vatican and the Crown of England. That means every policeman, every soldier, every member of Parliament and judge in England, in Canada, in any Commonwealth country, they were ordered to stand down because they are not allowed under international law to take an oath of allegiance and serve a convicted criminal. So their allegiances are null and void, and the government knows that, the army knows that, and that's why they're making an example to basically scare people so much that they've forgotten common sense, they've forgotten the law, that the emperor clearly has no clothes anymore and no power. And so that's what they're afraid of. Once we get the police and army standing down, they're finished, and they know that.
Yeah, and in the military, when one man gets incarcerated under a psychiatric commitment, everybody knows about it. Everybody. You know.
Well, do you think taking a page from the scenario that the Vatican pulled when they when they had a forced resignation of Ratzinger to bring in, at least an apparent forced resignation of Ratzinger to bring in Bergoglio as kind of the PR frontman, do you think that we're going to find a forced resignation of Elizabeth Windsor, who is the convicted criminal, to bring in, Prince William possibly skipping over, so that he'll be the public face, so that then the monarchy would not have a convicted felon in that office, and then they won't have that danger. Do you think that they'll try and do that play that the Vatican just did?
Yeah, very much. I think that's in the works. That's why Kate and William have been in the news so much. They were holding them in the wings to do exactly that. But don't forget, it wasn't the individuals per se, it was the institution as a whole that was found guilty. So while you hold executive officers accountable and guilty, the Crown of England as a whole is recognized as a transnational criminal body, the same way the Vatican is. So it doesn't really matter who's at the helm. The institution has been indicted, and it would apply as much to or King William, if you like, or who's ever king or queen next. I don't think it really matters. The point is that they will be found equally guilty and equally arrestable.
Now, one of the remedies that the International Common Law Court of Justice has found in the case of the Vatican is in essence to deinstitutionalize the Vatican, that is, so that it is no longer a state body, or with with privileges as a state, with receiving tax-exempt status and all these revenues as a state, with the Pope as the head of state. That is, separating all of these functions. What similar remedies have you proposed with the British monarchy?
Well, basically that, take the example in Canada, it's not even a question of will or won't. It has to now be reestablished constitutionally. There is no legitimate government in Canada when its official head of state is a convicted felon, and the institution of the Crown is a criminal organization. There needs to be, and there is developing in Canada, a whole movement to establish a republic. The form it takes has to be determined by people. There's a gathering in Winnipeg in July to try to establish a committee to form a new constitution, to establish a republic in Canada, probably a model of a federated republic where all the different indigenous nations have equal status within the republic, kind of like what Yugoslavia was. Yeah. That's one model being put forward, but that's up to people to develop. We need, in all of the Commonwealth countries now, and in England, people have to take the next political step, which is, yes, there is no lawful authority anymore. We have to recovenant that. We have to establish that. And until then, all bets are off. There are no lawful authorities. That's the really amazing thing about the times we're living in.
Now, you yourself had said that in June, you will be accompanied by many dignitaries and public people going back into the United Kingdom, into England. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to do the direct approach. We've got a whole film crew standing by. Some politicians and members of the tribunal, some senior members, are going to accompany me. We're going in as a whole party. And we're going to challenge them. If you want to try to arrest us, if you want to stop us, you're going to have to do some explaining to the world. It's going to be filmed in real time, live streamed all over the world. And the whole purpose of this is to enforce the warrants of the court publicly. And they will attempt to go to Buckingham Palace, to the various locations, and enforce these warrants. And it'll all be live on television. So this is this is the plan. And that's one of the things we were talking about when I was in Brussels.
Right. Yes, Joshua, do you have any questions at this point?
Yes, I was just wondering about some comments that are being made by the Catholic Church, the UN, and some of the larger multinational corporations. There's a spin going around about the legitimate redistribution of wealth. Have you been hearing some of this information? And if you do, because it's pertinent in the news, I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, I'm actually writing a piece about that right now today. For the richest corporation on the planet to talk about other people redistributing their wealth, why don't they just start at home? Now, of course, they won't. If they tried to do that, they would end. Things would end pretty quick. Anyone who tried to do that seriously with the Vatican wealth. But the thing that they're missing, of course, and this is part of their spin and distraction, is the wealth of the Vatican in the trillions of dollars of wealth, property and assets and everything. That's already been forfeited under international law. It's every church property on the planet can lawfully be occupied by people. The assets, the money in the collection plate, everything. It's going towards funding a criminal body, and therefore it's forfeited. So that once people become activated around this with the help of the common law sheriffs and others, they can lawfully start going in and occupying, seizing that church property and wealth. So knowing that, and the Catholic Church knows that that can happen under the law, you're damn right they're going to start to try doing everything possible to distract people and pointing to other people in other directions and posing as a very liberal kind of minded person, which is what Bergoglio is doing now. It's part of the whole distraction, but I think it's an extent of that they would risk causing that kind of within the Catholic Church, there's a lot of opposition to that. They would risk even offending people in the church by saying that stuff because of, that their backs are really very much against the wall on this whole issue.
It's very strange to me concerning the redistribution of wealth, because I've been asked so many questions about it. One of the strange things is an awareness of everyone's, this is a comment made by the Pope, said that despite the decrease in poverty, the world's people deserve and expect even greater results, and awareness of everyone's human dignity should encourage everyone to share with complete freedom the goods which God's providence has placed in their hands. Now, are they expecting people to dig into their pockets and give to the church that would be redistributed?
Bingo.
What? And how does that work? And is it because the Vatican needs extra cash in their pocket, or why is this push? Even the UN is pushing this, and I'm sort of either I'm missing something, or is it sort of like the carbon tax where the planet's really not warming up, but it's a way of getting more money?
Well, it's kind of like, why is the British SAS and the Navy SEALs in America going in to rescue 200 girls in Nigeria when they've stood idly by while thousands are being trafficked every day all over the world? There's obviously another agenda going on, and it's kind of like this term sustainable development. Part of Agenda 21, the depopulation program, they mask their purpose behind these pleasant-sounding labels and words. Sustainable development means, you can't have so many mouths to feed. You got to get rid of them. But it sounds like a very liberal, very progressive kind of thing. If you just go by the words. And similarly with this, when they're talking about redistribution of wealth, well, the first question is, okay, boys, set an example. How about starting to distribute the wealth of the church and, that kind of thing. That, of course, isn't going to happen. But this is, like I say, more fog and mirrors, really.
Okay. You mentioned something, and it's something that a lot of Canadians are asking about, and that's Agenda 21. And how does it apply to what the work that you're doing with ITCCS? A lot of Canadians think that Agenda 21 the Americans are dealing with, that Canada really doesn't have anything to do with it. Can you spell out a little bit about what Agenda 21 really is, and how it was put forth, and why it affects all people that are part of, let's say, the Commonwealth, the Americas, and other countries?
Well, I know Alfred probably has stuff to say about this too, but the 2 cents I'll throw in about that is, it was bandied about, the term was bandied about for decades, since I think in the 1980s at some of the world summits it began to be talked about. I have, kind of first-hand experience of this among Indigenous communities, because documents given to us from somebody within the Assembly of First Nations, now this is the government-run government chiefs, who are really acting as the arm of the genocide machine in Canada. Yeah. Documents from a conference they did in Calgary in 2003 kept using the word sustainable development as applied to reservations. And what that was is clearly, from reading through the double talk, they were saying, the AFN chiefs were saying, that we have to get rid of at least half the people on the reservations. We have to cut off their housing, cut off the medical supplies. Now, as a minister in the downtown east side of Vancouver for decades, we see where those people end up. They end up on drugs, they end up homeless, they end up getting wiped out. And that's the whole plan aimed at Indigenous people. You get the native elites to get rid of their own people, to force them into conditions of poverty and disease and helplessness, and they'll get killed off. They will depopulate further. That's the Agenda 21 program for Indigenous people all over the world at the hands of the collaborating native elites. And this happens in Canada, happens in any area where there's large Indigenous communities. So that's one example of how they need to use Agenda 21 in that way, basically to get the resources, to get the water and the uranium. If you go into northern Saskatchewan now, there's areas where you're not allowed to go because of the enormous death rate from uranium poisoning on all the Cree reservations. Same thing in Lakota territory, the Rosebud and Pine Ridge reservations. I'm actually going out there next week to help document some of that. So that's an example within Canada and the United States of how the whole agenda is being pushed.
And the same thing with the Athabasca River, with the tailings of the tar sands, which are so toxic, and that they're bumping right against the river where native people and the fish are dying and getting diseases at alarming rates. I know that through Agenda 21, it's almost people have to be aware it's the opposite of what they're saying. When they're talking about combating poverty, it is creating poverty. When they're talking about protecting and promoting human health, it's actually the opposite. But I would really ask listeners to read up on Agenda 21 and see what what's going on that end. Now, for your
could I just jump in here a second?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. While we're on that subject, and I'm sure that Kevin and you, Joshua, will appreciate this, because there is an ITCCS and Vatican connection to Agenda 21. All of these depopulation policies, world depopulation policies, actually began in the early 1950s when what's called, quote, the Club of Rome was founded. And this was founded by the black monarchies, by the UK Monarchy, by the Dutch Monarchy, and by their kind of think tanks. And guess where it was founded? In Rome. And guess what is in Rome? The Vatican. So that's how they surfaced it in kind of a technocratic mode, the Club of Rome, in the same way that the Trilateral Commission and all of these other clubs and commissions are kind of surfaced in a technocratic context. But it all traces back to the Vatican, to the Club of Rome. So I just wanted to add that, that this fundamental world genocide traces back to the Vatican.
Thank you. I just want to come back to one point here, Kevin. And I know that when you come back home, you'll be working on probably a video series or a tape series that people can follow for the positions that are available for the international common law positions. So you're going to be looking for investigators, people who have experience, for instance, in forensics. You're going to be looking for sheriffs. What are the other 5 positions that you'll be looking for?
Well, we need people to help enforce the warrants, to help organize. The thing to remember, this is a community movement. We need to organize a community to take back these church properties, to take back the wealth. I mean, we've been saying this for years around the whole issue of the residential schools genocide, that Native people need to be reclaiming those spaces. That has happened in some areas of Canada and the U.S. where the Catholic Church has been ordered off the reservation and those buildings have been taken over. Those examples need to be spread. We need to mobilize the community to do that. So it's that. It's also providing security for witnesses in the courts. When we do set up these local common law courts, we've got efforts now, especially in the U.S. and England. People are really taking the ball and setting up these common law courts, and that we need protection for the witnesses and the court members in that. And all of that will be provided by the sheriffs and the peace officers. That's why we're training them now over the next few weeks.
Okay, will there be something available on the internet, video-wise or otherwise, that is going to be prepared for the people that are interested? I'm getting emails like crazy saying I'm ready. What's going to happen in the next few months?
Forward all of their inquiries to itccscentral@gmail.com. itccscentral@gmail.com, because that's the central body that farms out. It kind of coordinates all the different groups. So, for example, people in one area will be connected with each other. They'll be given the training material, and they'll be liaisoning with me and people who I work with to make sure those things happen.
Okay. What are your next steps? What are your next steps in the next couple of months with your plans? Also, I think you have that walk you're doing in June. When is that happening?
You mean going in England, or? Yeah,
well, I think you mentioned, I'm sorry, I forget, but there was a notice going out that for people to do a walk on June?
No, that's a fellow, he's walking from Glasgow down to Brussels or something. It's that was something else, doing a whole thing on child trafficking in England. But no, it's basically my job now is to be helping set up these local training programs and the common law courts that are being established, and leading towards the action, of course, in July as well. So, I'll be out and about all over doing that.
Right. With the people in Coventry, the Coventry Common Law Court.
What about them? Sorry,
did you meet with them?
No, I didn't go into England this time. It was decided I was all ready to go, and one of the things I was severely I don't know if they chastised me, but they said, look, you can't do that. You can't operate on your own. You need a team around you. Mm-hmm. And they said in no uncertain terms, we've got to have a whole group intervening in a place like England. It's just like Rome. In London and Rome, there are powers unto themselves, and they have no qualms about locking people away for years. So you need a whole different way of operating there. And, so they said for that reason, we have to have more protection around you and the people you work with.
And before you came to the United States, what happened to you in Ireland?
Well, it was interesting. I made a hotel reservation in Dublin, and nobody could have known about that because it was simply done on the computer. And when I got there, there was a fellow waiting right outside the hotel, and he said, Kevin, are you Kevin? And I didn't say anything, and he began to go babble on about stuff almost like he had been briefed about it. Not like he had a knowledge of it, but he had just been briefed. And he said, there's some people who you've got to meet. Come on down this alley. And he had me by the arm, right? And I basically talked my way out of it and said, well, let me go check in here in a minute. I've just got to check into the hotel. There was a group waiting outside when I looked out. They were ready to swarm me and take me away somewhere. So I made a few calls. We got the Garda, the Irish police. I just basically said I was being assaulted. The police showed up, and at that point, these guys took off. But, it was interesting because who could have known about that except somebody who had read my computer? Because nobody else knew except what was on the computer, right?
I know that within the organization of IITCCS and ICLCJ, there's been massive computer and internet and we keep moving forward in those areas, but it can be taxing.
Well, we're definitely under assault, and that's why the court had to take these measures. And it's also an indication of, it's like I found with the churches in Canada, it's how they react. Like, Sun Tzu in The Art of War says you've got to provoke the enemy to learn about them, to see how they respond. They were very worried about Ireland. Just like the churches in Canada were very worried as soon as we started talking about mass graves of kids, because they knew that, yes, there are those mass graves there. We don't want that looked at. In Ireland, there's something, they're very worried about us doing work there, and they've gone out of their way to subvert the groups that are working there with us, to start the, divide and conquer and rumor mill and all that stuff over there. So that's, by their actions, they're telling us something. And, that's the only place there was an incident in France too, but basically, whenever I go to Ireland now, those kinds of things start happening, and so I think that tells us something.
Yeah. Any last words or questions, Alfred?
Well, yes. Could you just mention again what the July event is?
What it is between June 29th, which is a Sunday, and July 6th, which is the next Sunday, there is going to be, first of all, there will be a delegation of us going right to London, and we're going to be holding a press conference. We're going to be holding actions to attempt to enforce the arrest warrant against.
Right, good, yeah.
There's also going to be supportive actions, church occupations, other things happening in the 10 countries right now where there's sheriffs being actively trained, and that includes Canada and the United States. So that's a week that we're really urging people, and on those two Sundays, June 29th and July 6th, to start doing the church occupations again, start enforcing the warrants, posting the stand-down orders to the church and police officers and others. There's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to be having up online soon, about all that stuff.
Good. All right. Well,
yes,
thank you.
And again, if people want more information as to how to sign up to become investigators, sheriffs, to enforce the warrants, to begin to serve against church properties and other things, to find out where the training sessions are, where can they go and where can they find more information?
They can write to the central office in Brussels. It's itccscentral@gmail.com. There's also guidance on the itccs.org site. Also, if people you know personally, you can direct them to me because I'm right on the front lines of organizing that stuff. But one of the things I'm finding is we can't rely on emails because they often go astray. So what I would suggest is that the best guarantee for this is to simply leave messages as well. I'll leave the number in America that I'm at, this phone number, because this is also a way for people to get through. It's 386-323-5774. So that's 386-323-5774. Just say that you want to leave a message for Kevin and leave all the evidence there. So that way we're not totally reliant on the email system.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to do one more last plug for Vivian Cunningham, a soldier that's been incarcerated for 6 months in the UK. If people would stand up and start to contact either executive of South Stafford and Suffolkshire Healthcare or St. George's Hospital, if you on .org or iclcj.com, politicsblogs.com, you'll find information to contact different people, because it's important that we, even if they're just asking questions, that we stand up for others that are being ill-fated concerning these global actions. Any last words?
No, you said it all right there, brother. Thank you, Joshua, and thanks, Alfred. I'm glad we're carrying this on the way we do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you.